Mr. President, do you think it's time for Prime Minister Netanyahu to do more on this issue? Do you think he's doing enough?
No.
What has happened in Gaza over the past 9 months is devastating. The images of dead children and desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety, sometimes displaced for the second, third, or fourth time. We cannot look away in the face of these tragedies. We cannot allow ourselves to become numb to the suffering, and I will not be silent.
As Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu grapples with mounting domestic and international pressure, his grip on power is more precarious than ever. The recent shift in the West's stance, led by U.S. President Joe Biden, signals a significant turning point in the relationship between Israel and its traditional allies, raising questions about Netanyahu's political future. In the immediate aftermath of the October 7th attack on Israel, President Biden expressed unwavering support for Netanyahu, reflecting the decades-old U.S. Israel alliance. However, in recent weeks, this support has begun to wane, as Western leaders express growing discontent with Netanyahu's handling of the war in Gaza.
Today, the people of Israel are under attack, orchestrated by a terrorist organization, Hamas. In this moment of tragedy, I want to say to them and to the world and to terrorists everywhere that the United States stands with Israel. We will not ever fail to have their back. We'll make sure that they have the help their citizens need and they can continue to defend themselves. You know, the world's seen appalling images.
The United Kingdom's decision on September 2nd to suspend certain weapons exports to Israel due to concerns about potential violations of international law marked a significant departure from the usual solidarity. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's government stated that it could not allow its arms to be used in ways that might contravene international humanitarian standards. This move underscores the increasing frustration among Israel's allies with Netanyahu's aggressive military strategy.
It is with regret that I inform the House today the assessment I have received leaves me unable to conclude anything other than that for certain UK arms exports to Israel, there does exist a clear risk that they might be used to commit or facilitate a serious violation of international humanitarian law. I have informed my Right Honourable friend, the Business and Trade Secretary, and he is therefore today announcing the suspension of around 30 from a total of approximately 350 to Israel as required under the Export Controls Act. These include equipment that we assess is for use in the current conflict in Gaza, such as important components which go into military aircraft, including fighter aircraft, helicopters and drones, as well as items which facilitate ground targeting.
In Washington, the shift has been even more pronounced. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, long considered one of Israel's most reliable supporters, had earlier called for Netanyahu's resignation, a move that sent shockwaves through the political landscape. Schumer's call reflected a broader dissatisfaction within the Democratic Party, where many are questioning whether Netanyahu's leadership is more of a liability than an asset in maintaining Israel's security and international standing. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris's approach to Israel differs somewhat from Biden's, particularly in tone. While Biden had maintained a close, albeit strained, relationship with Netanyahu, Harris has shown a willingness to address the humanitarian issues in Gaza and advocate for Palestinian rights alongside her support for Israel.
I also expressed with the Prime Minister my serious concern about the scale of human suffering in Gaza, including the death of far too many innocent civilians, And I made clear my serious concern about the dire humanitarian situation there, with over 2 million people facing high levels of food insecurity, and 500,000 people facing catastrophic levels of acute food insecurity. What has happened in Gaza over the past 9 months is devastating. The images of dead children and desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety, sometimes displaced for the second, third, or fourth time. We cannot look away in the face of these tragedies. We cannot allow ourselves to become numb to the suffering, and I will not be silent.
President Biden has not shied away from publicly criticizing Netanyahu, labeling his approach to the Gaza conflict as a mistake. This marks a significant break from the tradition of U.S. presidents avoiding direct rebukes of Israeli leaders. Biden's criticism suggests that the White House sees Netanyahu, rather than Israel itself, as the core problem. The implication is clear: remove Netanyahu and the bilateral relationship might improve. Meanwhile, Netanyahu's domestic situation is growing increasingly dire. Protests have erupted across Israel, particularly in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, following the deaths of 6 hostages in Gaza. The discovery of their bodies has ignited a firestorm of grief and anger, with many Israelis blaming Netanyahu for failing to secure their release. The frustration culminated in a rare general strike, which paralyzed parts of the country as citizens demanded answers and accountability from their government.
They prefer to deal with Hamas, give them money, build their tunnels, and not release Israeli citizens that pay the taxes here, that serve in the army, that are working in the fields, that are doing everything that they can to build up this country, but they just don't give a damn about them.
Unfortunately, we're here because 6 people that were alive and survived the agony of staying in Hamas captivity has lost their lives because the government can't make up her mind. And it seems like they forgot the Israeli ethics. That means mutual dependence on each other, mutual reliance on each other. And it seems like there's no one there that listens to us, but the families of the hostages need our support. They need to know that they're not alone.
Netanyahu's attempts to deflect blame onto Hamas, accusing the militant group of stalling negotiations and issuing new demands, have done little to quell the unrest. Instead, they have only intensified the perception that his leadership is ineffective and that he is prioritizing political survival over the well-being of Israeli citizens. At a news conference, Netanyahu appeared defensive, seeking to justify his strategy while acknowledging the failure to save the hostages. He asked for forgiveness from the victims' families, but his words seemed insufficient to calm the growing tide of public discontent.
They murdered 6 of our hostages in cold blood. So after this horrible murder, I don't believe that someone serious would come and say, "Now make more concessions. You are not serious. Hamas is serious." I can't believe this happened. I can't believe anyone really thinks that. And I can't believe President Biden actually said that.
Amidst this turmoil, former President Donald Trump has never missed the opportunity to criticize the Biden administration's handling of the situation. Speaking at an event last month dedicated to Jewish voters, Trump lambasted Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, accusing them of abandoning Israel in its time of need.
The toxic poison of anti-Semitism now courses through the veins of radical Democrat Party. I mean, this is a radical group of people. I never thought I'd see that either. They have gone crazy. And instead of expunging this hatred, Kamala Harris is pandering to it. He wouldn't even meet Bibi. He wouldn't talk to him, didn't want to talk to him, didn't want to mention. When they finally were forced to meet, she wouldn't be there. She wouldn't be in Congress. And they were forced to meet. It was like she couldn't stay. She just wanted to get out of the room. You can't have that. She'll let it go. She'll let Israel go.
Trump specifically targeted Harris for not attending Netanyahu's recent speech before Congress, suggesting that the Biden-Harris administration is out of touch with the realities of the Middle East conflict. Trump's rhetoric, while predictable, taps into the concerns of many within the Republican Party who believe that the Biden administration's criticism of Netanyahu could weaken Israel's position in the region. However, his comments also highlight the deep divisions within U.S. politics over how to best support Israel while addressing the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
We must stand with our friend and partner, the State of Israel. We will, strongly. And you'll be okay if you have the right president. You have the wrong president, like her, honestly, you don't have a chance.
As Netanyahu navigates this increasingly hostile environment, his political future is far from certain. The growing chorus of voices calling for his resignation, both within Israel and abroad, suggests that his days in power may be numbered. Yet, Netanyahu has survived numerous political crises before, and it would be premature to count him out entirely. Whether Netanyahu can withstand this latest wave of opposition will depend on his ability to both placate his critics and reassure his allies. But as the situation in Gaza continues to deteriorate and the protests in Israel grow louder, the question remains: can Netanyahu survive this storm, or is his tenure